I don't know if that recorded. Hi, this is Leslie. I wanted to show you how I got the planned part of planned pooling to work for me. There's been a blog shared the last day or two. She came up with a very similar technique. I have a couple differences. One being, this works with any variegated yarn that has a repeated pattern. It might take some time to find the repeat, because if it goes blue, red, green, blue, red, orange, blue, red, yellow, blue, red, purple, blue, red, black, blue, red, bright, you have to get all the way through. It doesn't matter how many times an individual color is repeated. You have to get the entire pattern or it won't work. You can work it in multiples of a half a pattern. When you see people just get a zigzag, that's a half pattern. When you get the cross, back and forthing, that's a full pattern. This is the one where I had my aha moment and realized what was going on. Everybody kept saying, look for the pattern, but they didn't specify what the pattern is. So this is what I'm going to tell you. The pattern is that when you're working back and forth, your colors are going opposite directions. So the pattern actually stacks every other row. So what you want to do is plan it out, and I'll show you how to do that, so that your two rows up, if you work it in a linen stitch, this is the easiest way to see it. You look down to the stitch directly below, which ends up being 2 rows down, because this is the one you're patterning off of, and you make sure your stitches go out 1 or in 1, depending on which way you do it. But 1 to 2 is the most you want to vary it, or else you just completely lose the pattern. But this was my aha. I am very happy with that. And then I decided to try multiples. So I tried this. And this is 3 full patterns going across. You can count the X's. 1, 2, 3. See? 3 full. And this is a half a pattern. So you can work any of this. See? See right there. It's a half a pattern. Look at that. Did you see that? I wasn't looking through the camera. I was looking at my... Okay, see? This is a half a pattern. So you can work in any multiples of half your pattern and get a width you want. Now, to vary the width just a little bit, that's where you either add a stitch or subtract a stitch, and you can get a little bit of variation. But you can be using this mostly for like afghans and scarves and things that don't really need to be that precise. So, but it works. And this is, well, I better get the yarn. This one, just another, example. This is, I've been working in a 1-to-1 ratio. I only moved 1 stitch each row. So because I like the effect of an actual plaid. You can vary it, like I said, up to a couple stitches, so 1 stitch either way, by varying your tension and controlling exactly where these stitches fall. But you don't want to work it much more than that, or else you will drastically alter the width of your piece. You can finagle it a little bit. It really does work. Try it. Get a little bold with it. But here is, now this is one thing I wanted to point out to you. Any repeated pattern works, no matter how small the color. See, look at that. These ended up just being 1 stitch, but this is 1 pattern repeat. Like I said, blue, pink, yellow, blue, pink, orange, blue, pink, green. But this is 1 pattern repeat. This is where the whole pattern repeated. But see, I got it. And then this one, a little more jarringly nauseating, but it still worked. Again, very short color runs of only, sometimes there's actually 2 colors buried in there. But as long as you pay attention to where your stitches land, it can work. Now this is another baby yarn I found. This is a pretty one. This actually still has its label. You can see it's Bernat. Okay, Softy Baby. What? Princess Pebbles. This is obviously has much longer color runs than those other 2, so this is going to make something very pretty. I just wanted to see what it did. And then this, now this I want to show you some things I did differently just to show the effect. This piece, I worked it out, and now this is where I had some varying width of colors. Sometimes the color, with the pink especially, wanted to give me just 1 stitch. Sometimes it gave me 2. But with the oranges and reds, sometimes it gave me 3. So I kind of rounded it off and fiddled with it a bit and called it every color giving me 2 stitches. So even if it didn't, I still counted it that way to keep my total correct. So it kept a decent pattern. Even though it mushes a bit in and out, that's fine. My count stayed the same, 2 stitches per color, and I paid attention to where they were falling and got that. Now this one, I decided to only pay attention to where the pink were falling and to call it just 1 stitch every time instead of 2, even when it gave me 2. So again, I kept to my numbers no matter what it did, but then what I allowed to happen was I didn't pay attention to what all the other colors were doing as long as the pink landed right. And then I got a slightly different thing going on with the same yarn. See? Slightly different. Not a whole lot different. I also used a slightly smaller hook for that one just to get a different feel for it too. So that was one effect I got. Now this combination here, I used a smaller hook, a much smaller hook. I think I used a G on that, and I used an I or J on that. So this is much denser. See, and I got more stitches per color. See, sometimes I got only 1 for that. But as you can see, you're working with the pattern of the yarn itself. It's not your hook size that matters so much. And this is the same width. Look at that. We got the same thing going on here. See? It's just the individual stitches are bigger or smaller, and the whole feel of the fabric is different once it's done. So whatever hook you use, just keep your tension, your personal tension, fairly medium so you have room to maneuver. You have room to make it tighter or looser to make up for dyeing problems and other weird things going on. Now this one, it's hard to tell. What I did with this was instead of falling a stitch ahead, I actually fell a stitch behind. So this is wider. Okay, see, this is just a little bit wider because I added a stitch instead of decreased a stitch. Now you can't tell because it still does crisscrosses, but if you look carefully, you can see which direction my stitches are running. This row is going that way, right? And this row is going that way, and this row is going that way. So this blue falls before this blue instead of after it. But since you're going back and forth, you can't really tell unless you look carefully and know what's going on. Okay, but that made this a tad bit wider. See, now this one, I wanted to show you what it looks like when you run the stitches 2. That's when your pattern squishes down. See, I went out 2, see, instead of 1. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So that's when your pattern squishes down. And then sometimes if you want to tighten it up and make the pattern kind of go whoosh, 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 you can do fun things. Okay, but it's all to do with your tension. You have to control it. So start with a medium tension so you can go either way. And then you'll get the best average for your piece. It'll work. I promise you. This was a pretty yarn, but it's more of a self-striping. It's a very long color. See? So I'm gonna do something else with it. I just wanted to show you the pretty yarn. Lots of pretty yarn. Now, the pièce de résistance. Excuse me, we have to go traipsing through the house to do this one and step over the dog. Hi, Dixie. And okay, I don't want to make you throw up, I'm sorry. But I want to show you, I am so serious about finding the pattern repeat. Any variegated that actually has a repeat will work. This is the Red Heart Camouflage yarn. It is, see right here, Red Heart Camouflage, okay, this stuff. All right. Guess what? I found the repeat. It is like 6 or 7 feet. It was more like 12 feet of chain stitch. I just kept chaining and chaining and chaining until I found the repeat. That is one repeat of the pattern. I kid you not. I nearly whooped out loud when I realized I found the repeat. I just kept going because I was stupidly determined. So it works, honestly. It works if the pattern repeats. Now, you have to figure out if it repeats. And the easiest way to do that is to chain it up. Okay, on some of them, especially the cheaper, the cheaper brands, they have, you can pretty easily tell that it's a repeat. But like with those two nauseating baby yarns, well, the one was more nauseating than the other, wasn't it? It was very difficult to tell because the colors are so short, and in one case so pale, that it was really hard to see what was going on. So the easiest way, I'm sorry, I should have made sure this was not all tangled before I started this, because now I'm wasting time. And the easiest way to tell, find your repeat, is to chain it up, because that will divide the length of yarn you're looping around your hands by into a third. Plus, it's easier to see if your colors are pale, your changes are not real obvious. It's easier to see your color. Look at Command Central. Isn't that cool? Look at all that. Oh my gosh. Easier to see your color changes when there's 3 pieces together to look at. I am going to get a hook, an H hook, I hope. Yeah, look, my H hook. I've been using H. Oh, I'm going to adjust that. H for most of the, worsted yarns, the number 4s. It just seems to work really well. Now, find a color change just because it makes it easier. You don't have to start any particular wear, because if a pattern repeats, it repeats. If it repeats in 28 stitches, it repeats in 28 stitches. If it repeats in 36 stitches, it repeats in 36 stitches. It doesn't matter where you start. It will repeat. You just have to find it. So to find it, you start at a color, at an obvious color. It might be a combination, like with those baby yarns. Sometimes it was like a green, blue, green combination that didn't seem to fall very often. And then a yellow after it instead of a, purple or something. So you go until you think you've got a repeat, which you can tell with this. I mean, like, this is one of the cheaper yarns. You can really tell easily. But see, we've got 2 blues. We've actually got 3 off-whites, right, and 2 greens. So I'd really like to make sure that this isn't just a long pattern incorporating these two beiges. So what you want to do is go till you think you've got at least 2 complete pattern revolutions, and then you compare them by looping them around. You don't go back and forth, because then that turns it backwards. You go around. See, there's another beige, so I think I've got it. So you loop it, you get back to your end, loop it at where you think it makes a circuit. Okay, so we've got off-white, beige, off-white, blue, green, off-white, green, blue, off-white, beige. So we've got it. We've determined our pattern. Now, if you've got a long repeat, you might want to count how many color changes are in your pattern. That'll help you keep track of where you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So, and it doesn't matter. See, this off-white and this off-white don't match at all. But that doesn't matter, because they're within the same cycle. As long as this off-white and this off-white match, then we're good. Okay, this one does happen to actually repeat. It's a palindrome. Look at that. It's a palindrome repeat. So it does match both ways. Interesting. But if your second off-white is long, as long as your second off-white, every pattern is long, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. So, may as well take this back now to 1 pattern repeat, because now you got to find out how many stitches in your stitch pattern are going to make a pattern repeat, because this is a chain. You're not going to chain the thing back and forth. So if you're going to do double crochets or half double crochets or a linen stitch or just single crochet across or any other, whatever pattern you're going to use now, the linen stitch just happens to work really well for making a plaid look, right? But you can use any stitch. You'll get pools, but you won't get the plaid. Okay, so now we have to determine the stitches that are going to be used. So I'm going to do this in a linen stitch, and I call it linen because that looks to me like linen. It doesn't look like moss or granite. It's not all crumbly and bumpy and stuff. It looks like linen to me, so I'm calling it a linen stitch. Now your basic linen stitch, you're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4th chain from hook. Right? Chain 1. Whoops. Well, yeah, working with the camera in between my eyeballs and my hands is so awkward. I crocheted a sling. This is a tablet. I crocheted a sling for my tablet, and it's hanging around my neck. So this is really awkward. And I have bad eyes anyway. So when this picture goes out of focus, that's, my eyes are, that's what I see. When you see it out of focus, that's what I see most of the time. Even with my glasses lately. So yeah, this is kind of difficult. Now, one interesting thing that's going to happen is, I'll show you, is that this row actually will not be very representative of what's going on. You have to go a few rows. Number one, to make sure you've got the pattern and it's going to stay consistent, and also to the yarn pattern, and then also to make sure your stitch that you're crocheting with your average tension, because crocheting on a chain always goes wonkers. Plus, when you crochet on the chain, see, you're only going around one bit of yarn. When you come back on your linen stitch, you're going to go around the whole chain. So that eats up a tad more yarn, and honestly, by the end of the row, it adds up enough. You will see. I'm just going across at my even tension, And okay, there's my beige. So there. So that's approximately a pattern repeat. Now let's double check what's going on back here. I've actually got some of the off-white here. So let me take off a stitch, because you want to try to have just one pattern repeat. So that is a pattern repeat, at least on this row. And I've got, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 32. And now I'll show you what I mean by it's not going to match. And I will show you how to deal with that. Hang on. Let me just go across now. Now this row is actually going to be more representative of what you're going to get. Now make sure you keep your tension medium so that you have room later to go tighter or looser to adjust your stitches as needed. If there's any problem with the dye, or even if the yarn gets a little thin or thick, as sometimes happens, especially with the cheaper yarns, that can affect where your stitches fall. So you want to leave yourself the room to be able to do that, to affect it. Plus, if you want to play with where everything falls and try to make a more organic, wavy kind of in and out, just don't get too crazy with it, because that'll change the width of your project. Okay, see, look at that. I'm already back at the beginning of the beige, and I've got that much left over. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine, honest. So now I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6. See? That's 6 fewer stitches. That makes a difference. So now, this is where we get to have some fun. Okay, we can't worry about that first row. We just need to go across now, because your tension went weird for that first row. So right now that row doesn't count as your first row. So don't worry about it. Just now go back and make sure that you've got a pattern repeat. Because by now hopefully you should be settled into your stitches, okay? Now, see? Now it's a little longer, right? So it looks like I'm good, because you want it to be a little longer. So turn your corner. Now this is where it gets fun. Okay? You want, I like to do it so that it falls a stitch ahead. Okay, so that's, I'm going to tighten this up. So you look at it like I said, the row directly below. So it's 2 down. So that's got a tan one. So I don't want a tan there yet. I want this off-white. Okay, so I want my tan here. Okay, oop, I got to tighten that up a bit, because we want to push our stitch just a little bit this way. Okay, there we go. It's falling into place now. That didn't quite work, but there is a little white there. So, and that one worked. So this looks like it's going to work. We could yet adjust, so don't worry if it's not looking too great yet. We're just trying to make sure we've got the pattern. Okay, the screen is back here, the screen is here. This is off-white, this is off-white. We're looking good. I'm keeping it a little tight, trying to make sure that stitch falls further to the left. You see, off-white, so we've got 2 off-white there. Remember, one of those off-whites was a little long. Okay, we've got a green directly below. so we want the green to fall next one over. We're looking good. Okay. We've got a half blue, half green. So this one can be green or blue or half green, half blue. That's where you get your fiddle room. It's cool. As long as you keep your pattern going, you're going to be fine. Okay. Now, we've got off-white here. Okay. So, off-white. Okay. And this is like a partial off-white, partial tan. So we'll kind of loosen the tension a bit because we were a little too far over now. So tan, beige, whatever you want to call it, off-white, off-white, and blue. It didn't quite get there, but we'll just loosen the tension a tad. Okay, and green. See, there we go. Green. Alright. Green. And off-white. Right? And more off-white. And more off-white. There we go. See? Now this is a green. And this is a partial green, partial blue. So we kind of got a little freedom to wiggle. Blue. Okay, you can already tell we've got it. We've just got to fine tune it. So now you just want to go a few rows just to fine tune it and make real sure that you've got it. Because sometimes if you did one row tight and one row loose, it's going to be that you want both rows medium. So you want to do your tightening and loosening, your major tightening and loosening, the first couple rows, and then try to make it medium and just see if it's still falling right. Okay? Okay. And it does seem to be. Alright? So if you're doing a multiple, if you're going to do more than one repeat across, you want to multiply your full pattern, because this is not quite the full pattern, because we took one stitch off in order to make it fall one ahead, or you added one stitch to make it fall one behind when you're going back. So you multiply by the full pattern and then take off a stitch or two or add a stitch or two to make it fall right. And you know what? And I'm cruising along at a pretty medium tension for myself, and not really paying strict attention now, because now I want it to work. See? Okay, I'm going to tighten it up just a little because that fell a little too early. But by and large, I've got the pattern. See? So, and it was 26 stitches, right? So now, since this worked up so quickly, it doesn't hurt so much to take it apart. That's why you didn't worry about that. And I'll show you how to fix that. Hang on. But we've got the pattern. See how, if you follow one of these every other row, you can see how it's patterning. Okay? Alright? You can see how it's patterning. It's going to work. So we take it apart. And we remember that it was 26 stitches. Alright? So, and I'll show you how to fit. Oh, and I promised to show you that linen stitch thing. Okay, some people have said that they only found it worked with the other way of starting and ending the linen stitch. And the other way is, instead of back down here, when you did this, instead of crocheting in fourth chain from hook, what you would have wanted to do is crochet in second chain from hook. Okay, like that, and then start. Now this is going to be weird because I'm changing it on top of something that's already there, but I'm just going to pretend I'm going to end up adding stitches, but that doesn't matter because we were taking them apart anyway. And then you go across your row, and you wanted to start with an even number of stitches, and then add one and chain in second chain from hook. And then so when you get to the end, what you're going to have, if you had done this, I don't because I didn't do that. What you're going to have only one chain left once you've done this. So you go ahead and single crochet into that, see, and then chain one, single crochet, chain one, and then see your pattern. You've got the linen stitch, but with a bit of a selvage edge to it. Okay? It kind of tidies up the edge if you want it more tidy. It gives you a little bit of a firmer edge if you're going to back it or hang it or something, I don't know, or whatever, okay? Because you have 2 single crochets at the end. And then, you know, instead of just that open loop. So now where this comes in handy though is sometimes that big triple one that I showed you, for some reason it only worked with an odd number of stitches. Well, that means that at one end I have the normal, I shouldn't call it normal, I have the mesh, see, ending, and at the other end what I did was I only took off 1 stitch instead of 2 stitches. So I did that at one end, right? See, like that. And that's how I get an odd number of stitches, because for some reason it just didn't work. I was having to do it too loose or too tight, either other way. So that worked for me. Okay? So you can play with it like that too. Have one end with the mesh and one end with the selvage. Okay, but we were taking this apart anyway. And we were remembering 26 because that's how many stitches we need on. So that's going to get rid of your extra chain and your extra foof over here when you realize that it wasn't working right. Okay, this doesn't hurt. I mean, this is okay. You don't need to. Oh, what happened? Oh, I got a piece of my hair wrapped up in it, and it made a knot. How lovely. Okay, break the yarn. End of problem. So, you can start anywhere. Just leave yourself a tail, okay? And you can start anywhere because, like I said, a repeat repeats. It doesn't matter where you start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, okay? 1, 2, 3, right? And 1, 2, chain and 4th chain from hook. Now, how I was going to show you how to fix that. Remember we had even a couple, we had 6 too many stitches. There we go. So that means we have to make bigger stitches. So if you're comfortable just making your stitches bigger, do that. Or what you can do is get a hook 2 sizes bigger, okay, and go across, and it works. And or you can get a hook another thing I did was actually I got a hook a couple sizes smaller. Okay, and I actually did a moss stitch with a half double crochet. Either way works. Try them both. See what you like. But see, I did that. So whichever works for you. And it's so handy having color coordinated hooks. I can't tell what I'm picking up half the time. Okay. But no, I didn't want the H. I did want the bigger one. So I'm going to go across real quick, and I can't pause this. So I'm going to go across. I'm going to try to speed this up because we're down to the wire here. We're down to the end. And I know this has been long, but I wanted to really show you what... Yeah, that was helpful. I try to speed up and I mess it up. Okay. I really wanted to show you this part though, so you don't have to worry about having extra bits, because that would not have been very pretty, would it? So I've got my huger hook. So it was 2 sizes bigger, J, because I was using an H hook. Oh dear, looks like I screwed up somewhere, huh? Or I miscounted. Ooh, Dixie, what was that for? Must have miscounted, so let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22, 4. Okay, well this is 26. So, there we go. Okay, you can just tighten that down or even take that out if that bothers you. But it's mine, it doesn't bother me. So, okay, get back to my H hook. And go into the pattern. Did I happen to start the same? I did. Look at that. How funny. Okay. Now, this is going to look weird at first, but it's alright. So just make sure you've definitely fixed your problem. By checking where you end, and then mushing the edges, mushing your turning chain just a little bit, working with the tension, get it sorted out. Okay, so okay. Beige, off-white, alright, blue. Okay, so we're a little off, but not enough to worry about. We can just fiddle with the tension a little bit. I'm making this one a little bit loose just to get it back into pattern. Because we went 26 on that one, and it certainly worked. So I'm just gonna, there we go. See, we're back into pattern already. And you can already tell, you don't have to go several inches. You can tell you're in pattern. Look at that, off-white, off-white, green, green, grass of home, and okay, well, that blue fell a little early, but we're not going to worry about it too much. I'll just tighten it back up just a skosh. See? And then, if I didn't have this camera between my face and my work, I would be working much more consistently. But there we go. That is how you do it. See? And it'll work every time as long as you have a variegated yarn with a definitive repeating pattern. It works. See? And if you just set your pattern and then, you know, take it out, because it didn't take long to do those few rows. Okay? And get comfortable with that. And then that way, when you do one that's in multiples, you're fairly confident that you've got it close enough, and even if you don't, that you are confident enough to play with your tension, see, until it works, right? See? So, there you have it, gentlemen. What more evidence do we need? And if you're a Jesus Christ Superstar fan, you don't want me to repeat that sentence. But see, we've got a good start. We've just got to finesse it a little bit to make darn sure that that pattern falls right, but we know it's going to. Okay? I hope this helped. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them. If you want me to show you something else, I can show you something else.